Broadcasting from Boston, Massachusetts, the Smart Cities podcast is the only podcast dedicated to all things smart cities. The podcast is the creation of ARC Advisory Group's Smart City practice. ARC advises leading companies, municipalities, and governments on technology trends and market dynamics that affect their business and quality of life in their cities. To engage further, please like and share our podcast or reach out directly on Twitter at Smart City Viewpoints or on our website at www.arcweb.com/industries/smart-cities.
Welcome to another edition of Smart City Viewpoints. I'm Jim Frazer, Vice President of Smart Cities here at ARC. And today we're going to talk about the Smart City 3.0 initiatives. As you know, as we all know, there's a significant amount of ambiguity in specifying a smart city project today. This lack of clarity costs time, dollars, and often can lead you far astray from your smart city vision. And since this whole smart city effort worldwide is really in its early adopter phase, it's really not surprising that this ambiguity is also promoted by the marketing hyperbole of many vendors in the domain. This scenario is increasingly being defined as Smart City 1.0. There's obviously a plethora of very dramatic and very powerful, compelling solutions out there in the smart city marketplace. But it's very difficult for any one person, be you a city manager, some public agency leader, an elected official, or even an influential citizen in a citizens group, to really get their arms around the entire perspective and to really have a 360-degree perspective of a project. So as we know, many vendors have gone out with some great smart city technological solutions. But unfortunately, the adoption rate has fallen short of some of the most aggressive forecasts and even some of the conservative forecasts as well. So a few years ago, many of the people in the ecosystem really looked at a 2.0 effort in the world of smart cities. And this really focused upon the elected leadership and the employees and the staffs of public agencies. And they defined this as Smart City 2.0. But this too came up a bit short. And upon careful reflection, it recognized that the entire continuum of interconnected ecosystems that comprise all the participants of a city really weren't represented in many of these efforts. And that's where the Smart City 3.0 initiative really came to be. So what's Smart City 3.0? Well, it's an initiative driven by public expectations, or more precisely, user needs. So while Smart City 1.0 and 2.0 are driven by technology and government decisions, respectively, particularly in 2.0, Smart City 3.0 is neither driven by technology nor solely by government agencies themselves. So in a Smart City 3.0 perspective, the public and all of the constituent stakeholder communities express their views, their wishes, and their needs, with the government acting as a facilitator and as a definer and, in fact, traffic cop of agency-specific user needs. This stakeholder-based model drives social change. It helps eliminate objections, since all stakeholder communities and individuals ideally are included. It minimizes design errors and ensures that the technology is properly applied in the development of the city that your stakeholders want to see in the future. A well-applied Smart City 3.0 effort also satisfies satisfies the three pillars of sustainability as well, by 1, protecting the natural environment, 2, enhancing human quality of life, and 3, maintaining fiscal prudence. So how can this really be applied in the real world? Well, in order to structure, formalize, and document Smart City 3.0 project conceptions, delivery, commissioning, and ultimately the retirement, well, the systems engineering process is used. And as we've talked about in previous podcasts, the evolving Smart City 3.0 manifesto includes a structured approach to that planning process. So in step 1, you would define your stakeholder communities. These communities can range from elected officials, from the various departments within a public agency, to the downtown business district, to special tax districts, to adjacent public agencies, to citizens groups. From perhaps there's a bicycling community, perhaps there are parent-teacher associations that encourage and work with the state DOT on safe route to school for walking paths for school children. So it's very important to cast a very broad net in defining a number of stakeholder communities. And you could easily come up with well more than a dozen or even 2 dozen without much effort. Then in step 2 of the Smart City 3.0 manifesto is querying these stakeholders, a multitude of stakeholders, say 50 or 70 or 100 in each stakeholder community, for their specific user needs. So this requires a large outreach effort to really communicate to them what the areas of interest are, what are the options, and to extract out of them a narrative, a few sentences about what's the largest problem in your city. If you were all powerful, what would you fix in your city or public agency today or in the future? Well, once you have collected these user needs, the next step is to qualify these user needs into groups that are supported by a consensus of all the respondents. This is not an insignificant task. You might have hundreds, if not 1,000 or more user needs. And it's important to clarify, quantify, and group these into consensus-based needs. Once you do have these consensus-based needs that really are foundational to your effort, step 4 is quantifying those textual narratives that describe those consensus-based needs into measurable functional requirements. These requirements can then become an RFP, an RFI, and are the next building block in that Smart City 3.0 effort. The next step, number 5, is to assemble these requirements and the underlying user needs into a project specification. And it's important to remember that every need needs a requirement. Every need is required to drive a measurable functional requirement. And no functional requirements should be introduced that don't have an underlying user need. The next step, number 5, is to assemble these requirements into a project specification. Next, number 6, is to create a test plans actually, plural, to ensure all these consensus-based needs are met and that none of those extraneous requirements have been introduced by vendors or anyone else. It's important to really use those consensus-based needs as a foundation. All along the process, number 7, you should consider user needs over the entire project lifecycle, from project conception, from the concept of operations to operations and eventual project retirement and disposal. Along the way, number 8, it's important to maintain compliance with the 3 pillars of sustainability, which are relatively simply stated as protecting the natural environment, enhancing human quality of life, while maintaining fiscal prudence. Generally speaking, projects today really get funded if they have a short payback, say 2 or 3 years, occasionally 4 or 5, depending on the human impact and impact on the natural environment. Following this 8-step process of the Smart City 3.0 effort really does result in faster project completion, lower overall costs, and much greater user satisfaction. These attributes are only some of the strong reasons to use this Smart City 3.0 approach, which in itself is driven quite a bit by systems engineering. So once again, the Smart City 3.0 manifesto steps are defining your stakeholder communities, querying a multitude of stakeholders in each community for their specific user needs. Then number 3, qualifying these collected user needs into groups that are supported by a consensus of all the respondents. Number 4, quantifying or actually turning those consensus-based narratives, those textual user needs, into measurable functional requirements. Number 5, assembling those requirements into a project specification. Number 6, creating a test plan to ensure that all needs are met and that no extra and costly and schedule delaying requirements have been introduced. Over the entire project, it's important to look at the entire life cycle from project conception to retirement. And it's important to also keep an eye on sustainability, in particular, the 3 pillars of the natural environment, human quality of life, and jobs and road safety, and all the human factors, as well as a relatively rapid payback. There are a number of references out there on Smart City 3.0. Dr. Winnie Tang has written Gearing Up for Smart City 3.0. Dr. Boyd Cohen from Spain has written The 3 Generations of Smart Cities. Herman van den Bosch has a very good paper, Smart Cities 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, What's Next? Thomas Mueller has written Towards a New Paradigm of the Smart City. Bill Hutchison has some interesting perspectives. His efforts are entitled, How Smart is Your Smart City and Why Should You Care? And the US DOT also has written the Systems Engineering Guidebook for Intelligent Transportation Systems. It's written by the US DOT and published by the Federal Highway Administration. All 6 of those are great resources for you to learn more about Smart City 3.0 and this philosophical approach to supporting all of your stakeholder communities. So thank you very much for joining us for this Smart City Viewpoints podcast. We look forward to seeing you on a future edition. Thank you very much.
Broadcasting from Boston, Massachusetts, the Smart Cities podcast is the only podcast dedicated to all things smart cities. The podcast is the creation of ARC Advisory Group's Smart City practice. ARC advises leading companies, municipalities, and governments on technology trends and market dynamics that affect their business and quality of life in their cities. To engage further, please like and share our podcast or reach out directly on Twitter at Smart City Viewpoints or on our website at www.arcweb.com/industries/smart-cities.
Bye.